Okay, this is Mr. Reed coming at you live from U203. I want to talk a little bit about your rationale writing, as that is going to be the primary focus of your summative and articulating the aspects of your learnings about satire and being able to assess a text of your own creation. Today, I want to talk specifically about the second point in our Unit 3 summative prompt, which is an explanation of your uses of satirical devices with examples from your original satire. Today I'm going to talk about giving your rationale focus, so specifically focusing on the thesis statement. In terms of the actual pulling of evidence and being able to explain out that evidence, just remember that rationale writing, you do want to be able to articulate and be able to use examples from your satire. So after you do the thesis statement, which is what I'm going to be covering today, I then want you to think about, okay, so I have examples from my short story, or I have examples from my newspaper, and I'm going to be pulling examples directly from my writings and then being able to explain those out and how they connect with my thesis statement, okay? So just a kind reminder again that today is really about focusing on the thesis statement. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about backwards design very, very quickly. What is rational writing as a whole, right? The first thing is that it's articulating a meaning of a particular text and then exploring the nuances that are expressed within the text. So you're being able to showcase through language, through visualizations, examples of Horatian or Junelian satire, or invective language, or the examples of burlesque. And then being able to then, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, go and explain out the intentions of your work, looking at examples of language. So that might be diction, that might be style, that might be examples of satire in your piece, and then being able to connect it back to the intentions and purposes of your work, right? So what I mean by backwards design really is that as you are creating your satire, you really should be thinking about what you are going to be talking about in your rationale. So again, a summary of your original satire is an explanation on the uses of satirical devices with examples from your original satire, and then an acknowledgement of your peer editing process and incorporating or rejecting of peer feedback with explanation. Okay, so today, again, as I mentioned, we're just going to look at number 2, the highlighted in the orange. So we've done this before. We did this with the Tempest unit when we were looking at argumentation writing. And in a lot of ways, you're trying to persuade me that the techniques that you are employing in your text connect back to your understanding of Swift's work. So what are the expectations? You're going to relate structural and stylistic features, examples of figurative language, and what effects that they have on the audience. And then the second part of your, I would say, your introductory paragraph is really justifying how the author's decisions convey theme, mood, tone, and how you interpret that. So we talked a little bit about cause and effect writing, right? So if you're composing, let's say, like a newspaper article, or you're doing a video, right, and you are using, let's say, like invective language, right? You would be saying by using invective or implying invective language or employing invective language, this conveys or reveals or communicates a particular idea, right? The author uses, depicts, describes, applies Horatian satire through specific diction, through tonality, right? Through rhetoric. It's up to you, really, what type of language devices connect to the particular purpose of your work, right? So please make sure that you use these particular verbs. They really help with being able to articulate your ideas clearly. So let's look at an example, all right? Through the use of both direct and indirect dramatic irony, seen in the development of characterization and quotations, in addition to invective diction, the newspaper article, The Youngin, exposes the ridiculous, invulnerable wealth bubble, a systemic class-based issue expunging privileged elites from all wrongdoing, which allows a newspaper audience to observe how this global issue is prevalent in all societies, including their own. Right. So this kind of goes back to just an example that we did at the very beginning of this unit. We were looking at that Onion article about the rich kid and how he sort of is able to get out of a lot of trouble because of his wealth. And what you see here is the cause. Right. This is the language that I employ in my work. Right. The invective diction, etc., the characterization, and then being able to explain out what effect that has on how I read and interpret the text itself, right? So let's talk a little bit about the cause and effect of some of those verbs there. So through the use of, right? So how I'm employing particular language, and then I provide the examples, like the direct and indirect dramatic irony, right? Those literary devices. I talk a little bit about characterization and quotations, right? Those, again, are some examples of things that I employ in my work. Invective diction, right? And then the effect is that I'm exposing the ridiculous and vulnerable wealth bubble, which allows the newspaper's audience to observe. So I'm really thinking about who my audience is. I'm thinking about how they're receiving my text. And what are they supposed to be learning about my text if I was, per se, writing this Onion article? And that is cause and effect thesis writing. And again, after you were to compose this, then you would want to go into the text, find examples of direct and indirect dramatic irony, find examples of invective diction or examples of characterization, pull quotes specifically from the text, and then be able to explain out how it pertains to this particular thesis statement. If you are not quite ready for this particular writing form today, because maybe you're working on your formal formative, that is okay. But next week, the November 29th week, I would strongly recommend that you take a minute to watch this video and pose questions to me during conferencing. Have a good day.